Very good morning, my dear student. So today I am going to discuss about the introduction to computer system. In introduction to computer system, the topic that I am going to discuss is memory, the sections of the memory. So how we find that particular memory will going to work. So when we discuss about the different type of memory, one particular pattern of memory, what we find it that this particular memory we say it is a secondary storage device. Okay, so secondary storage device, that means pen drive. We all know this thing. We have all idea with it, and we do work with this particular thing, isn't it? So this particular thing, what we find, this particular memory system that we find, what we have, that this is a very small storage device, isn't it? It is a very small storage device, and it is shaped like a pen, and it's built in storage that connect to the computer by USB port. So this is what we can find it, that when we are connected it, when we are making this particular device, at the time of construction of this particular device, what we see is that this has been connected with the form of what, with the form of a different particular way. Okay, so what we find, this particular section, this particular storage, that there is a very small storage section is there. Okay, so small storage section, what we find it, that it will going to build up, and it will going to make the structures, and when we find this particular device is there, that means this device has its own structures and own form. Okay, so the device has its own structures and own form. Those the particular structure of the device that we maintain, those the particular structure of the device that we are working with, we find it that we are having this particular structures, and we are using it. Okay, so in this what, it is based on that totally the old system that we say, that is an old technology. We can find it. What is that old technology? It is based on an EEPROM technology system. EEPROM technology means electrically erasable programmable read only memory system. Okay, so this particular thing, what we find, that it allows us to do the particular work, that means it allows us to write there and ensure that particular thing is on process. Okay, so when we find it, that particular thing is on process, that means what we will going to see, what we will going to find out, that each and every particular area, each and every particular part that we are working with, that we are finding this each and every section of it, that will going to have this particular type of work that we are doing. That means when we are having information, when we are having the data, so all this data and information, what is the requirement that we require it to store. Okay, so as we require it to store this particular thing, that means this particular device with will going to help you to store the data. Okay, so as we find that we will going to store the data, this the particular thing will ensure you, that will going to ensure you that how you can do the process, how you can make up the process. That means it is not that you suddenly find one thing and you are going to work on it. That is not a thing. That means you must have some process based on which what you can do, you can work on that and you can do the work. That means suppose you have a CD. As I have discussed about it, that if you have a CD, in that particular CD, how we are writing, in the previous video we have discussed about this matter, isn't it? So this is the thing what we find, this is the part that we find, that when we are having all these particular structures, when we are making all these particular structures, that means in each and every area we do have our different types of what, different types of processing that we are doing, isn't it? So there what we find that we are writing and we are ensuring it that in this process we can write it in this particular device. What is the device? Device is a pen drive. Okay, so we are connecting it with an USB port which will going to do the different patterns of activities that is required. Okay, so different type of activities that you require, all these different patterns and different manners of activities, what we going to store, what you going to work on, all this particular type of activity, all this particular pattern of activity, what we are doing, we are using a pen drive and we are storing it, isn't it? So pen drive is what is a storage media or the storage form, or we are storing the data on it. So we find it that there are there are the particular ways that we find that how we are storing those data, how we are working on this particular data. Okay, so this is the thing, this is the part that we find, this is the part that where we see that we are doing the different pattern of activities. So otherwise what we find that it lies to an dormant. So pen drive is used to store the data, and this is what, this is the flash drive, very the storage capacity is what, 64 MB to 128 GB. Now we can find that we have the particular storage process has been increased. How the storage process has been increased? It has been increased from where to TB, how many TB it can store, isn't it? 8 GB drive, 4 GB drive, 10 GB drive. Now we are trying to see how many TB that we can make that particular storage section to be store the data, and storage section to be work with the data. So this is one of the very important fact, this is one of the very important part that we are seeing it, we are finding it, that in this particular way we find it that we are having this particular data and we are working with this particular data structures. Okay, so now I will talk little bit, discuss about how we can delete the data, how the data are being deleted from what, from the different unit of your storage sections. What are that? They are, number one is a RAM. Okay, from RAM how can we delete it? How we find it that from the RAM we can delete it? We say it that this is a data that we stored in a RAM is not removable but replaced within a new one that becomes an inaccessible. That means what we can find it, those the data what we have, those the data what we find, that each and every data what is there, that the data we are storing it here and we are working on this particular structure. That means we are doing a labeling of it. Labeling means what? We are giving the address of it. Okay, so as we are giving the address, we find it that the address will going to have a dispatch of the things. That means what is the current program is, that the particular current program what we find. So each and every program what is there, each and every type of program what is there, what we are doing, we are dispatching those data, and as we are dispatching those data, we are making them what? Accessible. We are working it and we are making it accessible so that we can make the particular work very much usable for us, isn't it? So this is what we can see, this is the part what we can find, that in each and every part where we are using those data, where we are making those data, each and every data that we are using, each and every part of the data that we are using, we find it that particular data will going to access in a certain way or certain manner. So as we find it, the data is accessing in a certain way or certain manner. That means there we do have a type of what, different patterns of organizations, that we are organizing the particular fact, that we are organizing the particular area. So as we are organizing those area, we find it that each and every area that where we are storing the data, there are the different type of structures, there are the different type of work that we can do by replacing the data and deleting the data. Okay, from RAM is what we can find it, that deletion depend on the type of a ROM, that how what is the type of a ROM. We have electronically erasable, programmable, read-only memory, isn't it? So many ROMs are there. Erasable read-only memory, I have discussed about it, that there is a volatile, we are using the ultraviolet ray for it, isn't it? So next is what we find, the next part that we have, the next working section that we have. In this particular working section, we have a magnetic tape. Okay, so magnetic tape is there, and based on this particular magnetic tape, what we find, that we will going to have the data and we are working on the data. That means it is a tape technology. Okay, so it is a tape technology. By this particular tape technology, what we find, that in this magnetic area, there is a magnetic field is there. In this particular magnetic field, we are keeping the data, we are keeping the track of it, and we also destroyed the tape, and tape will be redundant on useless. Okay, so this is what we can find, that we have a certain pattern of platform. So as we are having a certain pattern of platform, in this particular pattern of platform, what we are doing, we are exposing with a strong enough magnetic field should be there, isn't it? So strong enough magnetic field should be there, and based on this particular field, what we can find, that this particular structure, this particular data, what we have, what we are seeing, that in this particular magnetic field, what we are doing, we are having those data and we are storing those data. Okay, so these the particular structures, this is the particular part, as we are working on it, as we are finding that in each of this particular area, in each of these particular structures, that we have different ways that we can clean up our memory, and as we clean up that particular memory, we can find that all this memory, what is there, all the memory part, what is there, that each of this particular memory section, we can, or we have the ability to delete the thing and work on it. Okay, so see here, there are some sections that I am discussing with you. That is what, that is first is a serial port. Serial port means through this port of information, what we can find, the information will travel and in out one bit at a time. That means serial port comes in the form of a 9-pin or 20-pin male connector. So 9-pin connector, see here, this is the particular section is how many connector, it is a 9-pin connector section. Okay, so this is the particular 9-pin connector section, we can find it. We often see this thing, that communication COM port. Okay, that is said as a COM port. COM means communication port. So COM port, what we find is this particular COM port one we have, where we find like mouse, isn't it, modem. So all those devices what we have a serial port system, and we use the USB cable, and using those USB cable, what we can find, that we can do this particular work. Next what we have a parallel porting system. Okay, parallel porting system, that means parallel port means what, through which the several data, as the name suggested, several data we can send simultaneously over the several parallel channels are there. Okay, so there will be a parallel channels through which like 25-pin connectors is there. See this one is 25-pin connector is there. So this is what one of your parallel channel, like where we can find it, that is known as a male port, this is known as a female connector. So why? Because there we can do the work parallelly. Okay, so this is what we can find, that this particular connector in printer, in the scanner, we do find all these things, we do find this particular type of connection we can build, and we can do that. Now RJ45 port that we have seen nowadays, we are all familiar with this because we do have the hub or modem in our house. So RJ45 port is there. Using that RJ45 you can do the connection, and RJ 11 port is there. Okay, so RJ11 port, you also find that you can do the connectivity process in this particular connection phase. Now, how we can recover the data, how we can find the data can be recovered. So we can see that data what we have in RAM, we can recover the data. That means we have to practice, we have to see that particular thing that will going to constantly refresh your work. That means RAM need to be continuously refreshed. If you when your computer is turned off, that means check the leak out of after a minute or so. The fridge chips what we find, the pop into another computer, we run the Linux. Okay, so those the different type of thing where we are giving a different type of raw data, we are working with those raw data. As we find that particular patterns of raw data what we required, that it can be recognized very nicely, we can format it. Like suppose you are taking a picture, so as you are taking a picture, those the picture what we can find, that we can further process the work, and we can see that how the work will be given to, and how we can find the work will be done, isn't it? So this is how we can find that we can easily we have a process of recovering the data. Suppose you are in the particular area where you are removing the thing or deleting the thing, but do you think it is deleting? It will go to your recycle bin, isn't it? The thing will go to a recycle bin. Now if from the recycle bin if you delete it, then obviously you can find it, the thing will be deleted. Else what we find it, the thing will be already there, that you can call them. Okay, you can work on it. So this is how you can find it, this is how you can see that how we can work on the different patterns of the data, and we can make the data to be workable. Okay, so this is what we can find, that as we are recovering them, as we are making the recovery of this particular product, we are recovering it from the different sections. From the RAM, as I have said you, now from the ROM we can find that depending on the particular area, we can also recover the data. Okay, magnetic tape is that particular process where we find in this particular magnetic tape also we do recover the data. We can find that there is a special some facts are there, capabilities are there, through which we can successfully recover the data and we can work on it. Now hard disks, what we can find it, that there are the different type of damage. Okay, damage we do have a different section. So when we store the data in a hard disk, there are the different type of hard disks are there, like external hard disk is there. So when we store the data in this particular hard disk, what we find that there we do have this particular type of data, and we are working on this particular pattern of data. Now as we are working on this particular data, as we find that how the data is been working with, we are seeing it that we can recover the data, and we have that particular specification. In that particular specification, what we find that we are doing, sometimes mistakenly we are removing it. Okay, by unknowingly we are removing it. So when we find it that unknowingly we are removing that particular thing, we are seeing it that those the particular part, those the particular sections that we have, those the particular part that we are seeing it, we are making them the particular section to be workable, and we find it that how the thing can be made implementable. That means how we can recover the data and we can work with the data. So here I have given you some of the device, secondary storage device, what we can find that we are using for the data storing purpose, like hard disk. Hard disk, what we can find it, it is a high storage device with a range of 1 GB to terabyte nowadays. Okay, TB. So this is what the particular thing is. Floppy disk, this is nowadays not in use, but previously this was used. This was a thin, very thin, flexible magnetic area is there, like in a floppy disk there is also a circle pattern of thing is there, disk pattern of thing is there, and this is totally a magnetic area. In this particular magnetic area, what we find that the data will be stored. There are the tracks and sectors are there. Based on the tracks and sectors, the data will going to store in this particular area. Okay, so this is what we can see it. Some other thing that we have seen, that is a compact disc. Compact disc also now it is very less used. In compact disc what we can find, 120 millimeter CD is 700 MB, and we can find the specification of it. It is used for the multiple 150 KB, means 4 into 600 KBs that we can find. And even if the magnetic tape was been used, as we have discussed many times, that magnetic tape was thin tape is there, and this particular magnetic tape was used for the purpose of storing the data in it. Okay. So thank you dear student. Today I am ending my session here. Thank you all.